And so this is it. This is the final build, the production build of the Tenere 700 tail tidy made by Cymarc Engineering. British-based company, do lots of manufacturing in the automotive sector, and they have a dedicated part of their business making bike parts. So this has been back and forth a few times, doing various tests, various measurements, and this is, as I say, the production version that I'm about to fit and just rubber stamp it. So, made from 3mm aluminium, TIG welded seams for strength. As you can see, it's braced very nicely using stainless steel. This separate piece, what this does is, I'll show you when I go to fit it on the bike. There are some spacers that come through from the top of the bike and they protrude ever so slightly. What this plate does is, firstly, it adds strength at the mounting position, and it also takes up that space to allow this thing to be secured tightly to the bottom of the bike. As you can see, very, very nicely made. And this is made for the stock Yamaha indicator or the LED indicators. The tail tidy also comes with these two stainless steel collars. I'll just show you what they're for. These are for the stock Yamaha indicator. As you can see, they just go on. Like so. And the indicator goes on in the normal way. Just like that. This is really difficult, trying to do this and making sure the camera's in the right place as well, which it isn't. And then we've got the LED indicators, which go on exactly the same way as you took them off from the bike. You've got two halves of a mounting bracket or spacer and a nut. And these go back on exactly the same way as you took them off from the bike. I think they're a 12mm nut. Back in their new lowered position. It's worth noting that the indicators come with different coloured plugs, and these correspond to the plugs in the loom. So for my bike, and I'm sure it's probably the same across all of them, the black plug is the right hand indicator. So that's important because clearly that's the plug on the loom that's going to be activated when you turn your right indicator on. If you get these the wrong way around, your switch will be back to front. So black plug goes to black plug on the loom. So for reassembling the tail light, number plate light, we're reusing the rubber grommets and the spacers that came from the original hardware. Just encourage that in with a flat blade screwdriver. These are quite soft and pliable even out here in the cold weather in my man cave this evening. Make sure that's all the way through. Tail tidy cable goes through the centre. Tail tidy, tail light through the centre. Like so. And again, utilising the hardware that came with the original tail assembly. There's 2 flat washers there and a couple of nuts. I think they're 10mm. Actually, they're 8mm. Okay, there's a grommet for this hole for the cable to pass through, and then what we can do is we can use this support bar to tie these cables up neatly. Okay, so that's the indicators, and that is the number plate light installed. The grommet here, it's an open grommet. To make that really easy to install, I just cut it so it becomes open-ended, so I can wrap it around the cable rather than trying to force the plug through it. So grommet, reused hardware from the original bike's hardware. A couple of cable ties on here just keep that cable nice and neat. We've got the tail light to fit, but that needs to be done after the tail tidy is fitted to the bike. I'll show you that. This is where the cables will route up into the bike frame. You see there's a little slot there just to stop the cables chafing. There's actually plenty of room, but that's just a bit belt and braces. I am going to mount this on the bike now, and I'll talk you through that. Okay, you can see the 4 silver spaces I was talking about there. And you can see that they protrude slightly, and that's where a spacer plate comes in. And then on the other side, you reuse the hardware that came with your exhaust, which generally consists of a couple of spacers. And bolts. That is the main part of mounting a tail tidy. As you can see, this is where the cables come up through that that clearance slot that I showed you. Comes back into the frame and follows the exact route that it came from. Okay, now it comes to mounting the tail light. We've taken this piece, this metal piece, from the original hardware. We've reused that, bolted it back on where it came from on the tail light. and you'll notice this piece here, which is key. This is where the plastic locates to. I'll show you that as we reassemble. It's very important when you disassemble the plastic that you slide it backwards off of this hook piece. If you just try and lift it up, you'll break the plastic retaining piece. So what we're looking to do now is locate this piece here into this piece here, and then the tail light takes two fixings which come up from underneath. Okay, so this is the tail light going in, locating in the slot that I showed. Cabling follows the route with everything else. As you can see, that locates in there for a nice snug fit, and then the cabling routes round. And then to secure the tail light, there's two of the original fasteners that came out of the the tail light from the original back piece. So these are a Torx, and they just go back in the same way. Cables coming up neatly through the frame as before, and these are all your connectors to go back together. Now remember I said about the black connector being your right hand indicator, so that corresponds with your right hand indicator plug, so all very straightforward to put back together. So that's the wiring routed nice and neatly from the tail tidy, tied up nicely on the back. Excuse my dodgy camera work. Up through the little slot that we mentioned into the frame. Comes back where it came from, where you took it apart. Clip back into the stock clip. Everything where it was before. Very, very straightforward. And then of course we're going to test the connections before we put all the bodywork back on. So you've got the 4 fasteners under the seat. You have all of your fasteners underneath, and we've got 1, 2, 3 fasteners underneath, and then there's a plastic rivet that came out of this top hole here. Make sure the pin is pulled towards you so the rivet's open. Push it in firmly, and then just push the centre pin home. That's in. Then the triangular piece goes back in as it came off. Okay, it pushes into 2 grommets there, and then we've got our fasteners to go in here, here, and here, like so. There are a couple of locating pins at the top here in the plastic that pushes between this piece and the white piece, so that needs to be located in there snugly before you do the fasteners up. Then what we have is the if you've got a rear rack, you may need to use these fixings for that, and there's also a fastener that came out of there. So a recap on the reassembly then. We've put the 4 fasteners here. Mine will look slightly different to yours. Perhaps I've got a special mounting kit there for some soft luggage. My rear rack has been put back on, back in the same fasten points. Behind this piece there's a plastic rivet. We've got 3 fasteners here, and then underneath the plastics we've got fixings, 1, 2, 3 there, and that's the same both sides obviously. And that's the finished article. As you can see, indicators well below the exhaust gases, so no more melted plastic. I'd say around 35 to 40 minutes from start to finish to fit the tail tidy, depending on what accessories you've got. So I've got a rear rack that had to come off and go back on, etc. But even being really careful and meticulous, 35-40 minutes start to finish. Thanks for watching. Ride safe.